Ooh.
You really do look like you've lost weight.
You do. It's possible. I changed up my diet, my medicine, my diabetic medicine. So
You're not taking metformin anymore?
Still taking metformin, but I added back the glyburide.
Okay, remind me because I've got a bottle of it I found in the back.
Okay. Are we all ready?
I'm ready.
Ready?
Ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
It's easy. Scroll of Thoth, episode 25, April 9th, 2015. Hello, everybody.
Hi, guys.
We have a full house here tonight. A whole bunch of us decided to come out and speak about tonight's subject. We have our semi-regular guest, Joel Manka.
Hello.
Who is does pagan prison ministry, all-around heathen, pagan, and good guy.
Pontificate a lot.
We have Helena Zahara, who has been with us before. I believe in the episode titled Renaissance Witch.
That's me.
That sounds like you.
Who does a whole host of things that I'm not going to list here right now. We'll let you do it later.
Belly dancing.
And then we have Grace
Starkey. Hello.
You've been on the show before.
Yes, I have.
A long time ago.
Long time.
Maybe our second show. Something like that.
It's been a while.
Second or third. She is a leading member of the Reformed Congregation of the Goddess. And we are all here tonight because we live in the wonderful, great state of Indiana. Which most of our listeners probably know has been in the news recently because our wonderful governors, legislators decided that we needed more religious freedom.
Yay.
Wahoo!
There was no citizen demand for this, it should be noted. They volunteered to do this all by themselves.
I don't know. There was a whole line of,
Evangelicals.
even, you guys seen the picture of him signing the bill?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And behind him was a line of nuns in
Old
habits.
habits. Yeah.
Like I've never seen in years.
I thought it was Photoshopped myself.
Yeah, there were two versions of that picture, and I think that one may have been photoshopped.
You think so?
The other one were Eric, what's his
Eric
name?
Miller.
Eric Miller and my brain.
Well, let's just put it this way.
Extreme right-wing people.
Everyone present was either a plaintiff or an amicus curiae on the losing side of the gay marriage court decision last year.
And it was so interesting that they signed that bill behind locked doors in a secret meeting that you had to be invited to.
Well, then
Guards outside.
Then I'm believing the photoshopped version because I don't know. No one knows. Those locked doors. All I know is nuns in habits, monks in gray robes, a Hasidic guy somewhere in the middle. That must have been how it happened. I don't have any other way to prove otherwise.
Actually, it was the cheesy suits that were the big problem.
It's always the suits. It's always the suits.
I keep thinking about that song that from many, many years ago when I was young and sweet. And you know the one, Indiana wants me, Lord, but I can't go back there.
I don't know that one, but sounds,
Indiana
It's on
wants
YouTube.
me, but I can't go back there.
I think it was for killing somebody, probably for religious purposes.
all right.
Because you can use that as a criminal defense now.
Yeah.
Indiana being the only state in the union where we actually hang folks for being copperheads during the Civil War. Yeah, it's an interesting history, interesting mix of people here.
The home of the KKK.
Wow.
Actually, it's Tennessee.
Well,
John Birch.
damn near.
We are the home of the John Birchers, yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate because
It won't be hard with this group.
I love advocating for him, and kind of go around the table and get your thoughts about this bill and things that have happened since then. To start with, okay, there are some folks out there who believe that the government has been trespassing on their religious freedoms. I would say that's true. I've heard it. I've heard evangelicals say this. I've maybe even heard some pagans say this.
I've heard something about a separation of church and state, but I'm not seeing much of that.
Hold on.
Hey, I'm on drugs. What can I say? I had surgery on Friday. Prescription drugs.
Devil's advocate, do you guys believe a law like this, maybe not this particular law, but maybe a religious freedom law would be a good thing?
No.
I believe the one that was passed 22 years ago by the federal government was both necessary and a good thing. That was done to prevent the prosecution of an Indian tribe for using peyote at the time. And that's pretty much the only thing it had ever been used for up until the Home Depot case, which required a Supreme Court decision.
This is Grace, and I'm wondering if you could explain the difference between that federal law and this RFRA law that we've just passed here.
Okay, there were three major differences. The first one was that the federal law was strictly about restricting government action against an individual citizen. The Indiana law does that, but in addition to that, it would allow businesses, actually said businesses, to use it as if they were individual citizens. And the last major difference was that you could use it as a defense, an individual could use it as a defense in a criminal case. The Marion County prosecutor had warned them about that one before the bill was even signed, how many troubles that was going to cause.
And as corporations have the same rights as individuals now, then a corporation could use it
Correct.
in defense of a criminal action against people that they felt were discriminating against them or went against their religious beliefs.
That's only legal theory, but on the other hand, the prosecutor said it was possible, and anything that's possible is going to be done. You know it as well as I do.
They said it was to protect rituals, and those rituals being like marriage and burial and things like that, where a Christian minister who didn't believe in homosexuality could refuse to marry a gay couple or bury somebody of gay persuasion.
Or make a cake.
Yeah. But I don't see it as protecting rituals. I doubt that it's going to protect me if I decide to draw down the goddess sky-clad over at Military Park.
We might see. I'd buy that for $1.
Well, for 10, we might actually really go do it. Send in your money, folks. We need a new mic. We'll give you the date and time.
I'm going to change sides here for just a minute and speak to Joel, what he said about the differences in the law, and I'm about to use strong language. You know, it's really galling how our governor, Mr. Pence, just outright fucking lied, repeatedly saying that this law is virtually the same as the federal law, when it takes anyone with the ability to read to put the two laws side by side and see that they ain't.
In fact, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, who wrote the federal law, had an interview saying, stop saying it's the same. I wrote it, I know, and it's not.
And you're making a big assumption that people are actually going to read the two of them side by side.
And, that's what politicians like, Pence rely on, that citizens won't do that. So maybe we should.
And our millennials seem to be asleep. They are, what was the Tillman, I think is the name of the person that writes in Florida. He says, we've got a generation that's narcoticized by gadgets, media, and toys, and they are not taking any action.
I think that is a misinterpretation of the attitude of millennials. I believe most millennials simply believe that there's nothing that they could do, that the power of the federal government and the corporations that own it are unassailable. And it's like the Communist Party in China. There's no use fighting it.
Although, of course, this wasn't a federal thing.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
State government in general.
I think actually this issue has a huge amigo factor. They call it in politics. My eyes glaze over because the arguments got so hot so fast that if you weren't already aware of what was going on, you had no idea. I think for a lot of them, I think that was the case with the millennials. If it's something that didn't come up on your radar screen before people were already calling each other names, then you just back away from the train wreck,
Well, I also think that many people just believe that it's really about whether a baker should have to bake a cake for, somebody that they disagree with part of their lifestyle, when that is only a very tiny piece of the danger of this type of a bill.
Yes.
When does it become when my employer decides to impose his religion on me?
Well, when does it become I no longer am free to practice my religion the way I see it? It's, we're just basically saying that one group's religion is more important than everybody else's religion. And we are also watering down what religion means. Having worked as a consultant for the state in the Department of Corrections and in their religious services, I have been told, as other people in this room have been told because they were with me at the time, that this law waters down the requirement for anything that's taught in the prisons to really be based upon any truth or proof. Therefore, they no longer need people who know the religion, like a rabbi, to be able to come in and do teachings, because the inmates can now teach themselves, because they say they know the religion and they are followers of the religion. And therefore, as that's their choice of religion, they can implement it virtually any way they want.
All right, saving us money. Okay, so we're all members of a minority religion.
Several.
So, yeah. Colleen's already spoken about experiencing discrimination because of this. I'm going to draw Grace into the conversation. Do you recall any times when you felt discriminated against or even uncomfortable because you held a minority viewpoint?
Well, yeah. I don't make a point of going around with my religion or my sexual orientation tattooed on my forehead. And I made a decision not to do that quite a few years ago because I don't like putting up barriers between me and people that I meet the moment I meet them. I feel like when people do that, when people go around wearing their little crosses, and they certainly have a right to do that, and I would support that right.
Any symbol of their religion.
any religious symbol, but when people go around with a specific religious symbol on them in public, when I meet them, that's a wall they've put up between me. I know that relationship will most likely only go to be a very shallow relationship. So, I mean, I'm pleasant, I'm nice to them. I would certainly never refuse service to anybody, but I don't do that because I don't want to put that wall up between myself and other people. I may start doing it for political reasons, which I don't like because I really don't like putting up that wall immediately. But I may start doing it just for political reasons. So yeah, I mean, it's affected my behavior, and I would really like there to be a little bit more explanation of like the kinds of ways that this actually will affect people. I know there was some controversy a while back about pharmacists having to dispense birth control or morning after pills. And I'm not sure, how did that get resolved? Because are they free now to refuse to dispense those things? Would CVS as a corporation be free to refuse to dispense birth control pills or morning after pills based on religious beliefs?
Of the pharmacist or the corporation?
Either one, since this covers companies as well.
It's my understanding at this moment that they cannot, based upon a compelling public interest in having, medical supplies or services available. A lot of small towns, there's only one pharmacy. So, the standard mantra is, well, if you don't like it, go somewhere else. Well, you can't always go somewhere else. Where my sister-in-law lives, if any store on Main Street doesn't serve her, the next closest store is Kmart, which is a 5-hour drive in one direction. So,
wow. I'm not so certain. The Hobby Lobby decision kind of puts that in a gray area. We did plan on having 2 lawyers here with us this evening, and unfortunately, both of them had illnesses in their family they had to attend to, so they were not able to be with us today. So we get to speculate as lay people as to what all of this means. I know that Notre Dame University has received or is seeking to receive a religious exemption for providing birth control to their staff through their healthcare program.
And the students on campus?
I don't know about the students.
well, again, this is a layman's thing, but as I read the decision of both Hobby Lobby and what they're talking about, they're not talking about all birth control. They're talking about the ones that they see as abortifacts, yes. Hobby Lobby, for example, still provides 11 forms of birth control.
But the Catholic Church doesn't believe in any.
This is true.
But they do believe in Viagra.
Right. St. Francis can refuse to tie your tubes if you deliver at St. Francis Hospital. So,
yeah, frightening stuff. And how many of our hospitals are religious based? And how
The actual majority of them by number.
do we always have a choice as to what hospital we go to? No.
and many of them that are public hospitals have a pretty religious agenda at the top. The Stewart program is real steeped in running a lot of the hospital leadership.
So I know as a member of a minority religion, I'm a little frightened.
As am I.
At the same time, I'm a little excited as to what shenanigans we may get away with.
Like Bill Levin,
Like Bill Levin.
who managed to use this law to get license for the First Church of Cannabis.
Now, Colleen, you'll have to know that you're on call right now because I may. I haven't decided yet, but I'm not going to say what my job is. But my job requires me to appear in court frequently, and I may be asking that, according to my pagan religion, that before I can participate in any court proceedings, I must have an oracle present to throw some bones. And as to not overburden the court, I will provide my own oracle.
And your own bones.
And my own bones, and limit it to 5 minutes.
You'll ruin the day.
Well, I think I could probably do that.
But I don't know. We'll see.
Well, truthfully, I mean, we're laughing here, but swearing upon a Bible means virtually nothing to those of us who believe that the Bible was written by man and that it can be very contradictory. Also, if you happen to be a believer in the Bible, and that's okay with me, then you can't throw out part of the Bible. You can't say the Bible is literally the Word of God and then ignore big hunks of it.
To be clear, though, most courts don't use Bibles anymore.
Well, true, but the point I'm getting to is if we can discriminate based upon religious objectives, can we start stoning people who wear polyester clothes? Because the Bible says that you must be stoned if you wear a suit made of more than one cloth. Can we sell our daughters
to their rapist for $200?
Yeah.
of a goat or a couple of cows? And I mean, yes, there's some tongue-in-cheek in this, but seriously, if you believe that something is holy, then you must believe that it's all holy.
And to take it to extremes, what about tattoos and makeup?
Exactly. Tattoos are abominations. I love tattoos. My daughter is covered. Don't go there, guys. But if you're going by Leviticus in the Old Testament, it does state that tattoos are an abomination.
Can't eat shellfish either.
Or anything with cloven hoof. Oh my God, I love my Easter ham.
Damn Leviticus. He's such a party pooper. So,
But then isn't the Old Testament or the New Testament supposed to basically have overridden all of those Old Testament prohibitions and prescriptions? So I think it's, to me, I mean, I've heard people say that, and I wonder sometimes when people quote the Bible about things, how much of it they've really read, or do they just cherry pick the parts that they want to support whatever their current cultural prejudices may be? Because I don't.
I'm sorry, she pulled a sock out of her pants.
This is something I can speak to because I was raised in that culture. In fact, parents were kind of hoping I'd be a minister, which would have turned out much like Sam Kinison, I'm afraid. But yes, that is the thing that has struck me the most about the gay marriage portion of this, is that Jesus never said word one about homosexuality, period. Never mentioned. He said a lot about hospitality, which they're violating. So it's only Old Testament. And yes, you are absolutely correct. The most especially the Protestants
Believe we are saved by grace and no longer under law.
Right. The Old Testament is included only for historical note and context.
let me
They
rein
give
this.
you a new law. Love one
I
another.
also wonder, I mean, one of the things that concerns me about all of this kind of thing, more than, who wants to bake a wedding cake for whom, is, the effects that it has on things like medical care and in particular, the controversial areas of medical care that primarily have to do, with women's access to birth control, with reproductive medical care. I mean, that really frightens me. I think those things affect our lives in such a profound way. And to see people using, religion to deny people basic services, that can turn their life upside down if they don't get them really does frighten me. I think it's pretty terrifying.
It is terrifying. And I had surgery on Friday. And the one comment that I made, by the way, I had great service at this place. I'm not complaining about it in any way. But they were adamant that I tell them what my religion was, that I go on record for my religion. And I said, well, you have to pick other because it's not on your list. And they said, well, are you a Baptist? Are you a, And I said, I'm not a Christian. And the law isn't even in effect yet, but yet they were adamant about having a religion listed for me.
Next, we'll have to wear the Star of David.
Did you ask them if you could refuse?
Yes, and they said they needed it for their records.
Wow. That's pretty, yeah, that's fucking frightening. We might be the wrong group to be making this argument, but, if you went to the press and said the United States is in danger of becoming a theocracy, they'd laugh at you.
In danger? We're already there.
They'd have to look up the term first.
Yeah. But at the same time, in poll after poll, there are more Americans that believe in angels, more Americans that believe that the Bible is, the revelation of God than in any other industrial country. We are off the chart. To find this kind of religious fervor, you have to go to places like Iran.
When they talk about equality under the law, my mind keeps going to Anatole France, who had said that the law is equal because the rich and the poor alike are both forbidden to sleep under bridges. Okay? When you have an overwhelming advantage like that, of one over the other, then equality is no longer equal.
Or a valuable measure.
Correct.
So the law has changed.
Well, it will change July 1st.
It will change July 1st.
Now, it has been amended. So what effect on the law does that amendment have?
It added sexual orientation to the things that you could not discriminate over, and religion. So, in theory, under the law, the companies we work for couldn't do something to us, but it's still up in the air about what we could do to each other. And I wish the lawyers were here, because when I read it, it was unclear to me whether the ability to use it as a criminal defense had been completely eradicated or not.
Yeah.
And considering what a hobby both gay bashing and witch bashing are for so many people.
So help me here. I've been under the impression that this law was initially passed because of there are certain people who didn't want to have to be involved in gay marriage, in gay marriages, that was one of the big motivations. So now we have this so-called fix to this law that says that we can't discriminate on the basis of someone being homosexual. So doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of the original law?
Well,
I mean, that's what I'm really puzzled by that.
Well, let's talk about reality. And here's what the reality is. This bill was originally passed to play to the base. It was make Mike Pence look good to right-wing, to religious people, and because they were angry that gay marriage is now legal, even though he had nothing to do with that, wanted something to make himself look good. That was the entire reason this law was made, so that legislators and Mike Pence could look good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any other reasons to do it. Doesn't make any sense.
We lived for 22 years without it.
They may not even believe in it, but they did it because we're going to raise our poll numbers. Now, as far as the amendment to the law, from what I read, it basically, it just guts the law as far as to people, what people thought they could use it for. So you can't discriminate now based on these things.
Well, you can't discriminate in places where they have
Serve the public.
civil laws that say that sexual orientation is protected.
Yeah, but we only have, Muncie just joined the club last week, 2 days ago, I guess. But we only have 7 cities in Indiana that protect.
That's my point.
Transgender,
So
gay,
in those
lesbians.
7 cities, then adding sexual orientation to that law will, in effect, keep them from being a corporation from being able to discriminate against you based on sexual orientation.
And let me
In
mention
those
real
7
quick,
cities.
Indianapolis is one of them. Jen Connors, you can come. It's all safe. You're good.
But outside of those 7 cities,
You're screwed.
you're screwed.
Outside of those 7 cities, we have had a 50% increase in adolescent suicides, mainly people that have been going through some gender identity issues and live in very, very conservative communities.
And as evidence of what you were saying about how the state didn't need it except for Pence's personal political
And all the others,
right? Martinsville, their city council is debating their own civil rights ordinance.
Awesome.
Now, when you stop and realize
Martinsville?
Martinsville
Wow.
was up through the early 60s a sundown town.
Yeah.
That means if you're a person of color, you don't be in town after sundown.
Yeah,
And,
signs saying, don't let the sun set on you here, certain words we don't use.
And I've had people of color tell me that this was enforced.
But they are right now debating their own civil rights law. So that shows how far out of step the legislature was from the rest of the state.
And that's one of the wonderful things about it is these people have to be so incredibly ignorant. I can't find any other word to use, and I'm sorry if I'm being combative, but they're so incredibly ignorant that they cannot see that they're on the losing side of history.
It's the old white male privilege, and I was involved in all of the protests in the past couple of weeks. And when I was marching with them on Saturday, the looks from a predominantly male crowd, and particularly from the older white males, because it was predominantly a white male crowd, the hate, the laughter where they actually sat and just laughed, the hateful looks, much of the younger crowd was giving us high fives. But these old guys, they just don't even recognize how far out of step they are.
Well, that's evidenced by the fact that they didn't anticipate the backlash that they were going to get from the rest of the country and from corporations who do business here.
And
Lilly, for God's sakes, is central to Indianapolis, and Lilly came out against it. Thank you, Lilly. But I mean, how can you not anticipate that kind of a thing?
all 5 living mayors of Indianapolis, which includes both Republicans and Democrats, all came out with a joint statement about it. I mean, I spent most of my life as a Republican until around the turn of the century, when the local party was embroiling itself in the internal squabbles. And the heroes of my youth would be ashamed to see this. Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne in to enforce civil rights decisions by the Supreme Court. recall that from your history.
Mhm.
Reagan lost the first primary he ran for president because he opposed a law in California that would have made it illegal for gays to be teachers.
That's why they called him the drugstore truck driving man.
And that's why he lost the primary the first time, because he stood up. Maybe having worked in Hollywood opened his eyes, I don't know. But he stood up for gays then. Where has this stuff come from when they're that far out of where Eisenhower and Goldwater and Reagan were?
And
used to call
what
them
rights are being restored by this freedom restoration bill? I don't know what rights I didn't have under the Constitution prior to this bill
Well,
that needed to be restored.
according to that bill, the way we interpret it being written, we can then do public ritual.
Yes.
We are free to be able to do public ritual, which we cannot be arrested for because our documents, like the Charge of the Goddess and things like that, talk about it. Now, I'm never going to be doing sky-clad ritual, so if you're hoping to see that, people, it ain't going to happen. But
Why not?
I will defend other people's right to do so if that's what they believe. But I believe that we ought to be able to have ritual anywhere in nature that we want, whether that nature is on the State House lawn, whether it's in the middle of Eagle Creek Park, whether it's in my backyard, any place that we are not impeding somebody else's safety. Like doing it in the middle of 465 would just be stupid. I'm not that crazy, but supposedly this would help defend us. I've been carried off in lots and lots of protests in my younger life. And, supposedly this law would support us in that kind of a situation, that we have the right to demonstrate or protest something that we feel is against our beliefs. So it's not a hateful thing on all fronts. It's just that, one, there's supposed to be a separation of church and state, and two, it certainly was not written or implemented in a manner that did not affect a large segment of the population, more than one segment of the population.
Well, let's freaking do it.
Which
Who's
is,
in?
oh, for the ritual?
Yes.
Well, I think we are planning summer solstice in a very public place, and we would like to get all of the pagan groups around Indiana to come and participate in a giant ritual.
What very public place?
I don't remember what the name of that park is that's got the big fountain in the middle of it. Not the one right downtown, not the Center Park in Market Street, because that could impede traffic. But the one that's down there on Meridian by the library.
That's Military Park.
Military Park. We did a ritual there Saturday.
Military
Sunday.
Park's the one by the
By the State House.
IUPUI.
the State House. No, Military Park is the one that's by the State Museum, right?
That's White River. I say
Yeah, it's right behind the State Museum.
I'd say
Yeah, I'm talking about the one where the I can't remember the name of the building, but it's the
anyway.
monument, to the
Our listeners
military.
don't care about the geography of Indianapolis.
Okay, but
But I say the State House lawn is more symbolic.
the State House lawn is very symbolic. Parking down there would be atrocious. We'd have to bus people in.
I'll bus.
I don't know. I've been parking in the mall parking lot, $2 for 3 hours, except for when they have events. They charge
Okay,
you
Grace,
$20.
you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just thinking about this, and I'm not sure. I don't understand. You guys were talking earlier about what rights have been restored that were taken away by this law, and it doesn't seem to me that any have been really, but. Right, I'm wondering what rights have been restored that were taken away before this law was passed. It seems to me that a lot of what this law is about people assuming that something that offends them ought to be illegal. And that does annoy me. There are a lot of things that offend me that are legal. There are a lot of pacifists in this country that aren't tax resistors that are forced to support military action. And, you know, I don't understand why just because something offends a person, that necessarily means it should be illegal.
Or fall under their religious rights.
Exactly. You know, it just seems.
I don't even understand how the baking the cake thing is part of the religion. Even if Jesus had said it was wrong, baking the cake does not make the wedding legal. Refusing to bake the cake does not make it illegal. The cake doesn't vet the participants. In what way is baking a cake or not baking a cake a religious statement?
Because those horrible, horrible gays.
Well, I responded to a blog about that, and I said, well, if you can't bake a cake for a homosexual couple, then you also could not bake a cake for a heterosexual couple who had lived in sin, because they would still be living in sin until after the wedding, and you would be baking the cake before the wedding. Therefore, you would be condoning their living in sin, which the Bible does talk about.
Or if one of them was divorced.
Or if one of them was divorced,
Adulterers.
or God forbid they had children that they brought forth.
Illegitimate children.
Okay. Let's not split hairs or tell Christians how to practice their religion. We all know that
I was just following logic.
that they're all contradictory. I think all religions have contradictions.
I'm sure they do.
That's why I have a spirituality. This is why I hate holy books.
Gerald Gardner was very misogynistic.
What a prick.
He said that the high priestess should get out of the way if she began to age so that a younger woman could take her place.
He traded a 40 in for 220s. What's wrong with that?
What's right with that?
Well, for Gardner, quite a bit.
I'm not going to judge a man that I didn't know, that I don't know this stuff. I didn't read it. I'll take it as true. What a prick. Anyway.
It's an important tenet of the faith that a priestess be perky.
Indeed.
Or at least her boobs.
Well, that we can do surgically.
Or gaffer's tape.
But you can't fix stupid. So I think we don't believe that the fix to the bill is good enough, or is it like now it's like George Takei says it's okay now. He says come to Indiana.
George Takei says that because if we believe what was said about the amendment, then actually it's gutted it, and we spent 6 weeks out of a 3-month legislative season for nothing. Whether there's any part of it left that a lawyer can twist to screw with us, that's the gamble.
And that whole part about using it as a defense in criminal acts.
So weapons still out, still go get them.
They can beat me up for being pagan. If they believe that you should kill a witch, then, they could use that as a criminal defense for harming me.
I doubt the court would accept that, but the court may well accept, for example, a denial of service protest in front of a metaphysical bookstore, because that causes no physical harm to anyone.
They might. So it's still a sticky wicket.
Yes.
And would we get arrested for a denial of services picket in front of a Christian bookstore?
Yes, we would. You know that as well as I do.
Well, yes, but that's not equality.
So what do you guys suggest that people do,
Picket,
both here in Indiana and outside of Indiana.
talk to their congresspeople, talk to their senators, take it to a national level, not just Indiana.
Write letters, write letters, write letters,
Write
make
letters.
phone calls, write letters.
Support the events.
I think when it's a good idea to have public rituals. I think that's a really good idea. I think that makes the point that, if you're going to have religious freedom, it needs to apply to everybody. I don't see why that would be harmful.
And I would like to say something specifically to the people outside of Indiana. And that is, watch your own state houses. You can be blindsided the way we were. Our neighbor to the south, for example, Kentucky, just a couple of days ago, the governor of Kentucky argued in a brief to the Supreme Court, and you'll have to Google for the news story on this because you're not going to believe me when I say this. But his actual words were that their same-sex marriage ban was not discriminatory because both straights and gays were forbidden to marry someone of the same sex.
Yes, I saw that.
Huh.
Okay. So
That whole bridge, rich, poor, yeah.
exactly. The insanity bubbles everywhere. Watch your legislatures. Pay attention to what they are doing.
What are they putting in the Kool-Aid?
And that's a Democrat.
Well, Arkansas was considering this bill and has decided not to. Georgia was considering a similar bill and decided no.
Because of the backlash against Indiana, economically, not because people are up in arms against it. It's because the corporations have said we won't do business with Indiana.
And I'm still trying to figure out, and you guys, I don't know if I got an answer that I believe in, is how did our legislature in particular think that they were going to get away with this? Because they tried it before in Arizona, and corporations came out and said, don't do this.
Because they got away with the right to work law.
Huh.
And they think we're all sheep and asleep.
And they think we're all ignorant because the right to work law was exactly the opposite. And this bill is written the same way. It's gobbledygook, legal speak, and they write the bills to be exactly the opposite of what they're labeled to be.
I think they should have to write a bill that a seventh grade student can understand.
Our legislatures, half of them wouldn't be able to read it.
Well, that's
War is peace, freedom is slavery.
but truthfully, they should have to write bills in plain English that the average American can read and interpret and understand.
There was actually a proposal back in the 70s. It was brought up as a bill and didn't get out of committee, where they would have a jury selected the same way you do a criminal jury of 12 citizens to sit and read the bill to see if they could understand it, because they were the ones who would have to be the jury for it later. And if 12 citizens picked out of the jury pool couldn't understand the law, it had to go back to be rewritten.
Yeah, too bad that didn't pass.
But no, that didn't pass. It didn't even get out of committee, let alone.
Hey, one thing you guys didn't mention, things that we should do. I don't think anyone mentioned a vote.
Well, maybe because we all vote.
Yeah. I think we're all registered voters here.
Mhm.
I think Helena's point about communicating with legislators is really important. People don't do that, and I think it's really important for people to do that. They do listen. They like to get reelected usually.
And getting politically involved, whatever organization, there's a dozen of them involved in Indiana Moral Mondays, from the Jewish community, the Quakers, now the feminists, whatever point of view you want to take, get more involved in supporting the people that want justice and freedom in our community.
Right on, sister.
Well, and letting the people who, if you happen to live in a district with one of these very conservative legislators, letting them know that there is an opposition. Because I think sometimes it's if they only are hearing one side of the story, I think sometimes it's very easy for them, just like they were surprised by this backlash. I think it's very easy for them to begin to think that, oh, everyone agrees with me, and everyone doesn't agree. And I think it's good for them to know up front that, yeah, there's a lot of people that are going to make a fuss.
I don't vote.
I think sometimes we sound like we're anti-Christian or something like that. And I know every single person that's sitting at this table. And I got to tell you, we all have friends or acquaintances who are practicing Christians, and we respect them totally. And I have several friends who are Christian ministers, and I find them logical and easy to talk to. We're not bashing Christianity, even though sometimes we do like to have fun with it, just like they like to have fun, about us. Maybe wrong on our part.
But atheists can just piss off.
I'm not saying that either.
Well,
Everybody should be allowed to have their own beliefs unless they're harming someone else, without being challenged or told that they're wrong or judged by others, unless they are harming someone else.
Wow. How do we not? It just seems so obvious.
Well, and as far as the atheists go, the religious right says that they're militant and trying to convert everybody.
Hey, I've met atheists who try to convert people.
Oh yeah.
They're horrible. Militant anything. Atheists, Wiccans, Christians. If you're the kind of person who believes your way is the only way, then you need to reevaluate.
It's not only the right that is rabid.
I take some small pride in being a backsliding pagan.
Yay, Gracie.
No, on the issue of voting, can I throw in my own hobby horse on this?
Sure.
One of the ways we get into these situations is because people believe they have to vote for one of the two main parties. And it's Tweedledum or Tweedledummer. Like the Simpsons episode where the aliens took over and said, it's a two-party system. You have to vote for one of us. No, you don't. In Indiana.
Throw your vote away.
Exactly. And then at the end, they said, well, don't blame me. I voted for Kodos. In Indiana, there are 4 parties with permanent ballot status. We actually had 5 on the 2008 presidential elections, for example. And we had 13 candidates that were eligible for write-in.
Now name those 4 parties, please.
Besides the Republicans and Democrats, you have Libertarians and Greens.
As far as I know, the Green Party does not have permanent.
They don't have permanent access, but they almost always manage to get enough.
It's actually rather difficult to get on the ballot in Indiana.
But the Libertarians consistently have enough votes. There's a threshold of 5% that they cross. They have permanent ballot status for that reason. And even that permanent ballot status issue is only what gets printed. As far as allowed, like I said, there's like 13, 14 political parties. And
you can write in on some things.
Right. You can write them in if they're not printed on the ballot.
Well, I'm going to say this as a non-voter, and that's the reason why I don't vote, because my choice is not on that ballot.
Well, the other thing that they've done is that they changed, you cannot do a straight vote anymore. You have to go through and pick out all your candidates. And they also did not give people any more time to pick out those candidates. You're still limited to the 2 minutes. So many of your people that are a little reading impaired or visually impaired are still only going to be limited to 2 minutes.
I've never been limited to any time amount.
I worked
Never.
every single election between 1972 and 2002, and we never threw anybody out to take it too long.
I always take longer than 2 minutes. What precinct do you vote in?
That's
You
the
need-
law.
It's the law, but it's one of those things that's never enforced.
Wait till it gets enforced. I'm gonna go back around to my point of not voting, but since I don't vote, I think it's imperative to advocate for easier ballot access, choice voting, where you can rank your candidates. So if your top candidate doesn't win, at least your vote goes to another candidate that you think is less evil. And also getting money out of politics.
Amen.
There's an organization out there called Wolfpack. Who's doing a very good job going from state to state to try to call a constitutional convention, to get a constitutional amendment, number one, to overturn Citizens United, and number two, maybe find some way to have publicly financed elections.
I disagree with almost every single point of that, actually.
Wow. Well, then you stay out of it.
Or make it another show because we're running out of time.
Exactly.
So that's what I do. But I won't vote for a Republican or a Democrat. I refuse to
Well, look at
validate people
Libertarians
who
and Greens.
drop bombs. I'll vote. I occasionally do walk into a voting booth, and when I do, for the most part, it is only a Republican or Democrat on the ballot. In that case, I write in none of the above. In real civilized countries, none of this will find new candidates.
Do you know I've never seen a paper ballot before I moved to Indiana?
Really?
I walked into my first voting booth in Indiana. Well, if you want to call that a booth, it's a fold-out table, actually. And I said, what am I supposed to do with this? They handed me a piece of paper. I've never seen a paper ballot before in my life. I've lived in 9 states. This was the first time I'd ever seen a paper ballot. And I keep wondering where the hell the voting machines are.
Well, thankfully we don't have them.
Yes, paper ballots are a good thing because there's a record.
The
voting
Go back
machines.
and count them.
You never knew.
I'm not a conspiracy nut, and I'm gonna have to go with this one.
Paper ballots can be torched, disposed of.
But it's harder to do.
With the machines, you didn't even have to do that. Once you left, once that curtain opened and you walked out, there was no way of proving who you voted for.
All right.
And Daddy Bush owns the company that makes those machines.
I'm just saying we're a little backward here.
That goes without saying. So we're coming up in the hour. Anyone have any last thoughts that they want to throw in?
I'm serious. I would really, really like to get large groups of people together to do public ritual. You know how to contact me. Get me on Facebook, wooglet@gmail.com, or Colleen Kelly on Facebook. Send me a message. We'll get a group together. Summer solstice.
Summer solstice.
I would like to say, don't forget, stay angry. The reason I'm saying that is because our legislature is over in a couple of weeks. So nothing can be done until next January.
Mm-hmm.
And they are counting and depending on the fact that we'll calm down and forget between now and then. Don't do that.
I think it's very important to stay in communication with the legislators. I do think that makes a difference.
I think that we need to stay visual in the community with the rallies and the marches and stuff that we've been having, because out of sight, out of mind, people will think that it went away and
Right
the
on.
problem will no longer exist.
Well, Beltane is coming before summer solstice, but summer solstice might be better to kind of bring it back around. I would say, folks, there's pagan pride probably somewhere near your hometown.
Oh, Beltane with the great right on the next state house.
That would be awesome. But there's probably a pagan pride somewhere near you. This is why we have them. So we could get together and talk about these things and kind of, be united in our freakdom. No one minds being called a freak, right?
No,
Okay, good. So come to our website, scrollwiththoth.com, to read the show notes. There'll probably be just a couple of links to things. Also, we have a donation for PayPal there, or you can use our Amazon search window to search for stuff on Amazon, and we get a couple pennies of a kickback. Do you guys have social media that you would like people to contact you with you or not?
Well, my name on Facebook. And don't forget that James has written some books that people ought to buy and read because they're actually kind of awesome.
I don't pimp them every time.
That's why I did it.
Helena Zahara on Facebook.
if you're Dianic, there are local groups like the Reformed Congregation of the Goddess that meet. Whatever your belief path is, you can find somebody local. Contact me and I'll try and get you in touch with those people. Again, that's Colleen Kelly. You can find me on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to come across.
And you can get me at jameslwilbur.com, jameslwilbur.tumblr.com, James L. Wilbur on Twitter, James L. Wilbur everywhere. Also scrollthoth.tumblr.com. Thank you, everyone, for coming and talking. I'm sure we'll have you back, all of you, at some time or another. And stay angry.
Great.
Stay
Good night.
angry.
Stay
Good
angry.
night.
Good night.
All right.
It's kind of awesome.
It's fun time.